The illegal schools putting children at risk. Hillary Clinton comes out fighting, and a terrible tragedy in Lincolnshire. You're watching 5 News Tonight. A special report on the scandal of England's secret schools. More than 150 of them across the country are putting children in danger. As Donald Trump says he is on the cusp of something incredible, his rival talks tough.
I am sick and tired of the negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump.
And a major police investigation after the bodies of 2 children and a man are found in a house. Also tonight we're asking, would you let your car insurance company look at what you post on social media, even if it could save you money? Admiral wanted to do just that to its customers until Facebook stopped them. Is it a step too far? Good evening, welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Matt Barbett. Across England, children go to schools where teachers ignore rules on what should and shouldn't be taught, where laws on safety, hygiene and discipline are routinely ignored, and where inspectors never visit. It seems extraordinary, but a 5 News investigation can reveal that authorities now fear there are at least 150 illegal schools in this country and thousands of pupils attend them. They say the problem is far bigger than previously thought, and they warn those children are at serious risk of harm. Layla Hayes has this special report.
They are schools that are hidden from local authorities, from inspectors, even from the government. Illegal, unregistered schools where children become invisible and are at risk of abuse and indoctrination. The education watchdog Ofsted say around a third are faith schools, either Jewish, Christian or Islamic. Daniel, who's asked to keep his identity hidden, went to an unregistered, ultra-Orthodox Jewish school where education was minimal.
It would just be back-to-back classes all day of Hebrew texts. There was perhaps an hour a day set aside for combined studies such as English and maths. Very, very, very basic. And these weren't taught by qualified teachers, they were taught by people who could barely speak English themselves. There was physical abuse, corporal punishment, caning, children who get their noses broken or fingers broken, children who were forced to wash their mouth out with soap. And this was routine, it happened day in, day out.
In the last year, the Chief Inspector of Ofsted has written a number of letters to the Department for Education warning of the danger of illegal schools which aren't registered with local authorities. In May, they identified more than 100 suspected unregistered schools across the country. Ofsted have now told 5 News that number has increased to more than 150. They say there are many more children hidden away than previously thought, and that too many children remain at significant risk of harm. This school in Birmingham, the unregistered Bawdsley Independent School, was closed down last year after Ofsted notified police that children were at risk.
When Ofsted inspectors arrived here, they found squalid conditions. Children had no access to running water in the toilets, and in one room they found 3 single mattresses covered in filthy sheets. There was also clear evidence of segregation, with different classrooms for boys and girls. And there was no evidence that staff here had been properly checked to see whether they could work with children.
While it's legal to remove a child from school to be home educated, Ofsted say many of those operating unregistered schools are using those freedoms as a cover for their activities. In a statement, the Department for Education said, "We have given Ofsted additional resources to root out unregistered schools and take action through the courts. Where children are being put at risk or not receiving a suitable education, local authorities and the police have clear powers to intervene." But Labour's Shadow Education Secretary said the government has been too slow to act.
Well, I think the government's response to unregistered schools is woeful. It's an abdication of responsibility. We know that there's a real problem there and that many children are being failed by the state by not intervening and doing their job, which is oversight and regulation. The Minister and the Secretary of State have been asked to take action on this, and I appeal to them today to do their job and take action.
Daniel worries children are still at risk.
Do you think the government is doing enough to tackle this issue?
No, clearly not. There are thousands and thousands of children who are being educated in the same way, or shall I say not educated, in the same way that I was, and yet nothing is being done.
How does that make you feel?
I feel livid. I think it's one of the great injustices of modern Britain.
Ofsted say unregistered schools are a serious and growing threat to children. And former pupils like Daniel say more needs to be done to make sure their voices are heard.
Well, it is a shocking situation. It's still going on. We asked the Department for Education for an interview with the Minister this evening to talk about this. They said no. We also asked the schools inspector, Ofsted. They also said they didn't want to discuss it. Layla, though, is with us now, as well as Alia Salim, who attended an all-girls Islamic school and who now campaigns against faith schools, which make up a large part of Britain's unregistered schools. But Layla, to you first. It's quite astonishing that no one in government is willing to talk about this.
That's right. The Department for Education have been very reluctant to talk to us about this issue, possibly because they have been heavily criticised for not doing enough. But Ofsted say this is a moving picture and they are getting new cases of unregistered schools every single week.
Alia, what was it like going to one of these unregistered schools?
No, I actually attended a registered school, but it was quite a fundamentalist Islamic boarding school. But with unregistered schools, there's no regulation whatsoever, but with independent schools, there's almost no regulation as well. So the curriculum there was very fundamentalist, very difficult. The rules were very strict. They were based on quite fundamentalist Islamic teachings. We were taught quite extreme things, such as, that being gay is punishable by death under a Sharia state, or that women had to adhere to certain rules. Some of the pupils who may have been accused of being gay, for instance, were expelled. So it was quite a difficult environment to grow up in, because some of the most basic things that children want to do, like listen to music, for instance, was banned.
So how concerning is it? How concerned are you that there are 150 of them, we think, therefore thousands of children potentially going to these schools still?
Yeah, it's a massive concern for me, because I'm really worried about independent religious schools that can be quite dogmatic because they're not regulated that well. But to know there are possibly 150 schools that are not regulated at all is worrying, because what are they being taught and what sort of rules are being imposed upon them?
What is also worrying are the ramifications for someone like yourself in leaving and speaking out about them. What kind of behaviour have people exhibited towards you as a result?
Well, I mean, it can be quite intimidating, because people, I mean, when I left and I started speaking about the school, there was a move on social media to call me a liar, to completely contradict my account. And I'm not religious anymore, so that was picked up on quite a lot. And some of the girls who also went to the school have told me that the reason why they don't want to talk out is because rumours can be spread about them, it can cause them problems at home with their families. So there is an atmosphere of intimidation about it. And also, for a lot of the kids that might go to the unregistered schools, do they know that these schools are unregistered? Do they understand that?
And of course, you went to an Islamic school. This is across faiths and of no faith as well, Layla, but we still really don't know how many children are involved here.
Yeah, I mean, last year, Ofsted discovered 15 unregistered schools, and just in those schools alone, they identified more than 800 pupils. Of course, they now say there are more than 150 of these unregistered schools across the country. So that means that potentially there could be thousands of children affected, and Ofsted are very clear on this. They say all schools should be registered or closed down.
Finally, Elliot, were you and other pupils wanting more involvement from the authorities when you were at school to come and have a look at what was going on?
To be honest with you, when I was quite younger, we didn't have an understanding of things like Ofsted. And so that idea that we wanted people to come and have a look or whatever, as children, we weren't aware of Ofsted really. I mean, apart from the fact that we were told to not tell Ofsted too much, we were told that. But no, I can't say that, up until stage about 15, we were really concerned about Ofsted. But for me, speaking as an adult looking back, yes, I would have preferred it if they were more involved, if they looked at our curriculum, if they asked questions. Thoroughly. So that's what I think.
Changes need to be made.
And I heard a similar thing from the gentleman I spoke to. He wanted to remain anonymous because he was worried about the backlash from his community as well.
OK, thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, a year ago, some said it was unthinkable, but this time next week, Donald Trump could be the president of the United States. The gap in the polls has narrowed again to less than 2%. So as America decides, both he and Hillary Clinton are fighting very hard. He's boasted of being close to achieving something incredible, while she has condemned the dark and divisive nature of the campaign. Julian Druk has been visiting the key battleground states, and he sent us this report.
The possibility that this is the next president of the USA appears to be growing. So on the campaign trail in Wisconsin, Donald Trump was daring to dream.
We're on the cusp of something incredible. Historic change that transfers power from a failed political establishment and returns that power to our families, communities, and citizens.
Unusually, it was Hillary Clinton expressing rage as a heckler in Florida called her husband a rapist.
I am sick and tired of the negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump.
In Ohio, the first black president made the case for the first female one.
Reject cynicism, reject fear, reject meanness. Choose hope. Choose hope. Choose hope.
But history can't happen without a crucial part of the electorate. Little Rock Church in Charlotte, North Carolina is a place of prayer and an election battleground. African Americans have always overwhelmingly voted for the Democrats. But early indications suggest Clinton doesn't yet have the pulling power of Obama in getting people to actually vote. It means alongside the religious messages, an electoral one.
Please vote. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Amen.
According to the pastor here, the possibility of a Trump presidency should fill America's black voters with dread.
We fear who may be elected because of the fact that some of the strides that have been made in the past, some of the accomplishments that have been made in the past will be just erased when certain people are in office.
So being the voters who could keep Donald Trump from the White House weighs heavily on these worshippers.
Every vote counts this time.
And more than ever, you think
more
this time?
than ever. This is a very crucial election.
It means that it's more incumbent upon us, all of us, to energize the rest of the community, and there's no time for complacency.
For more than a week already, people have been able to vote early at ballot stations like this one. It's a more convenient option, which has traditionally been more popular with black voters than white.
But a trend shows even this is in decline with African Americans compared to the last election. Pensioner William Coles, who had just cast his vote, said a big push to attract black voters may have started too late.
It's been a great effort. They need to continue and do it more. They should have done it much earlier than just recently starting.
Here we go, Jesus, Jesus.
With less than a week to go now, every vote, every person matters like never before.
Well, Julian is now in Ohio, another key battleground. And Julian, just tell us why Ohio is so important.
Matt, Ohio is a real barometer of where this election is going, and the latest polls show that it's virtually tied here. That's why Barack Obama has spoken here so often. And in the last few hours, he has admitted that there are problems. The black vote is not as solid as it should be, he said. He also spoke about the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails for the first time. He seemed to rebuke the FBI by saying that public opinion should not be formed by the innuendo of investigation. As it is at the moment, though, there is one poll about trust between the two candidates. As it stands at the moment, Donald Trump is 8 points ahead of Hillary Clinton in that.
Julian, many thanks indeed. A father has been convicted of murdering his newborn baby by shaking him to death. Daniel Salzoni killed his 13-day-old son in Wolverhampton in October last year. Medical experts said the injuries Salzoni inflicted were some of the worst they'd ever seen. And an investigation has been launched into the death of an RAF serviceman at a training facility in the Scottish Highlands. The man died during an exercise at RAF Tain near Inverness yesterday afternoon. His family have been informed and there are no other casualties. 2 children and a man have been found dead at a house in Leicestershire where police have been called to reports of a disturbance. A woman who was also in the house is being treated for her injuries in hospital. Peter Lane is at the house in Hinckley for us now. Peter, tell us more about this.
Well, Matt, the house is still sealed off. It is classed as a crime scene. Police describing this as a very traumatic incident. We know they were called to the street at 9:30 last night. Those reports of a disturbance, and that specialist officers with negotiators were deployed here, and they made contact with a man and woman inside the house. Police have just confirmed their names as David and Sally Stokes. In the early hours of this morning, Mrs. Stokes left the house. She was injured. She's been taken to hospital. But when officers gained access to the property, they found the adult male, David Stokes, and 2 children dead inside the property. The children have been named as Matthew and Adam Stokes. We believe they were 11 and 5 years old. Leicestershire Police have referred this case to the Independent Police Complaints Commission as a matter of routine because they'd already made contact with the people inside the house, and of course they're appealing for information from anyone who can assist them in this investigation.
Peter, thanks very much indeed. Still to come on 5 News Tonight. The Prime Minister wades into football's poppy row with a stern message for FIFA. And would you let your car insurance company see your Facebook profile and all those messages on it if it might save you a few quid? We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. Now, if your car insurance company said it might be able to lower your premium if you gave them access to your Facebook profile, would you agree? Well, that was the dilemma facing Admiral customers this morning when the insurance giant said it would be using social media to analyse the personalities of car owners and even determine the price of their policies. The company says it will help reduce premiums for high-risk groups such as young drivers. Campaigners, though, say it's an invasion of privacy, and the plans have come off the rails after Facebook said it would now block any attempt to harvest data on its site. Admiral's looking to ease any fears, telling us it does not have access to customers' Facebook data and does not hold social media data to set prices for its customers. Following discussions with Facebook, the product is launching with reduced functionality. Facebook, for its part, says protecting the privacy of the people on Facebook is of the utmost importance to us. We have clear guidelines that prevent information being obtained from Facebook from being used to make decisions about eligibility. Well, so is this all a bit of an overreaction to a simple plan to potentially save us money, or the first sign of a deeply worrying invasion of privacy? Let's speak to Miles Jackman from the Open Rights Group, who thinks it is worrying, and also with us is Kevin Pratt of the consumer affairs website Money Supermarket. Good to see you both. Miles, why are you worried about it?
Well, first of all, the discount being offered was a mere 15% for a massive intrusion into privacy. As you've said, this may be an ongoing situation which we encounter socially, that corporations may ask us to give up our private social media details in order for a mere small financial incentive, to the extent that if you don't, it may be suspicious that you haven't.
Kevin, we've heard what Facebook and Admiral have had to say about this. Yeah. But there's no way of knowing whether other companies are having a sneaky look at your social media and making decisions based on that.
That could be the case, but I think it's a question of volume. Admiral was going to rely on an algorithm, which is a computer program, to crawl through data on a vast scale. And that's not, Facebook won't allow that. So what companies would have to do is open up Facebook and as an individual go and look at somebody's profile, and there isn't the time in the day to do that.
We already know that Facebook makes a lot of money off selling us advertising based on what we write in our posts on there. But in some ways, is this just highlighting how far it's gone? Is this going to change the way people behave on social media?
It may well do. It may well deter people from posting things that they would otherwise have posted because they don't want to be seen in a certain light. What I think it is an alarm bell that everybody should listen to and say, I've got to be careful with my social footprint and I've got to put my privacy controls in such a way that I feel comfortable with them.
Surely it's a marketing opportunity, Miles, for someone else to come in and say, hey, you can use our social media and we're not going to try and flog you any advertising and harvest your data.
Well, there's always the risk of data harvesting and data leaks, a la Ashley Madison hack, etc., etc. But my serious concern is about what the algorithm is looking for. So will it be particularly prejudiced against people from social, ethnic, poverty, sexual backgrounds?
We heard of people organising themselves themselves and parties, for example, on Facebook, that made them seem like more responsible individuals.
Well, no, the argument that they claimed was that if you organised a party on Facebook, if you put the time and the location in, you are a more organised person. Now, that allegedly is an index that you will be a better driver. I do not see the correlation myself. Why is it that organisation, which may, of course, be against people who have learning difficulties, value depth perception as a driver?
There are many, many questions surrounding it, and many questions surrounding the use of algorithms in general. Thank you both very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Theresa May has condemned FIFA for its ban on international footballers wearing poppies. England, Scotland and Wales players want to show their support for the appeal during their World Cup qualifiers, which are on Armistice Day. But the world's governing body won't allow them to, saying it is a political statement. In the House of Commons today, the Prime Minister left MPs in no doubt what she thinks.
I think the stance that's been taken by FIFA is utterly outrageous. Our football players want to recognise and respect those who have given their lives for our safety and security. I think it is absolutely right that they should be able to do so. I think it's for our football associations, but I think a clear message is going from this House. We want our players to be able to wear those poppies, and I have to say to FIFA that before they start telling us what to do, they jolly well ought to sort their own house out.
Let's speak to our political editor, Andy Bell, who's in Westminster now. Andy, strong words from Theresa May there, but can she actually do anything about this?
I don't think we're going to get much more than those strong words, to be honest. Today, since we're talking about football, this was very much an open goal laid up for the Prime Minister during Prime Minister's questions. It was actually a Labour MP who asked the question, teed it up for her. And as you saw, she certainly expressed her opinions very strongly, but she did say it was up to the associations to take this on. And when we spoke to her official spokeswoman after Prime Minister's questions, that spokeswoman also basically said, look, she said what she has to say, but she's not going to make any direct contact with FIFA over this. And it doesn't look as if FIFA, to be honest, is taking much notice of it. This evening, FIFA is saying once again that this is a ban which applies across the board and has been applied to other associations, in their words, that look to commemorate similar historical events.
Andy, many thanks. Next, should heterosexual couples be able to have civil partnerships? Well, Claire Phipps and her partner Matt Hawkins think so. They don't want to get married, but they are in a secure long-term relationship and want the same kind of legal protection for each other that comes with being married. So why don't they just get married? Well, let's ask them. And we're doing this because there's an ongoing legal fight that some other friends of yours who want the same situation are going through. So just spell out, Claire, why marriage isn't for you.
Well, I think we did talk about it at the beginning of our relationship. We got together 8.5 years ago, and we did know at that point that we were a good, secure unit together. But just as the years went on, increasingly, I just felt I'm not a wife. I just didn't feel like I'd ever feel comfortable with that name. I just didn't feel like Matt was my husband. I felt like we were partners. And for that reason, you know, that's why we'd really like to have a civil partnership rather than a marriage.
So why aren't there civil partnerships for different sex couples at the moment when there are for same-sex couples?
It's a good question, and one we should ask the government, really. It seems to us a very logical extension of where we are now, and we have the backing of MPs from every single political party on this matter. Over 70,000 people have signed a petition. Today, the London Assembly unanimously voted in favour of extending civil partnerships to mixed-sex couples, so the momentum is there, and we're just waiting, really.
On the other hand, when there is marriage available to same-sex couples in England, Wales and Scotland, not Northern Ireland as it stands, why can they still have civil partnerships? Should they coexist?
Well, I think that when the law was extended so that same-gendered couples could have a marriage, not all of those couples actually decided that that's what they wanted. And we saw last year 1,000 people still opted to have a civil partnership, even though marriage was available to them as a same-gender couple. So there's obviously demand for this, even though same-gender couples can get married now.
Matt, is there another way of ensuring that you have rights equal with a married couple without having to go through marriage or indeed a civil partnership? Could that be a law change here?
I mean, I think that is something that has to be looked at, and I know that there have been debates in Parliament on the idea of a cohabitation law to cover couples who move in together, and then there's this sort of assumption that you get a common law marriage, but sadly doesn't exist. But for us as well, it's also about how we express our relationship, and that wouldn't necessarily be covered by a cohabitation law. That's why we're campaigning for the extension of civil partnerships.
OK, keep in touch, let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, during World War II, hundreds of Allied aircrew suffered severe burns in action, were taken to a specialist hospital in Sussex. For many, the nature and extent of their injuries meant that years earlier they wouldn't have survived. But here, they were in the care of a pioneering plastic surgeon. He was unafraid to experiment and, through trial and error, came to develop many of the techniques used on burns victims today. The results were often painful and required years of further treatment, but the men all now shared a common bond. And so their surgeon, this man, Sir Archibald Mackindo, formed them a club. He called it the Guinea Pig Club. And today, the Duke of Edinburgh joined surviving members for a special commemoration. Simon Viger has more.
As with all World War II clubs, this one gets smaller by the year. But the Guinea Pig Club was pretty exclusive in the first place. Today they were joined at the National Memorial Arboretum by fellow veteran, the Duke of Edinburgh. He served in the Royal Navy. The guinea pigs were from the RAF and other Allied air forces. Their terrible burns took them to the Queen Victoria Hospital in East Grinstead and the care of the father of plastic surgery, Sir Archibald Mackindo.
These were guys who had been brave. Many of them had been burned in battle. They'd had extensive treatment by Mackindo, but they were all of high morale. They taught me to endure. That alters your personality, and for the better, I think.
Sir Archibald developed new techniques for skin grafts, but the physical side was just half the story. He also dealt with the psychological side and taught people outside the hospital how to treat the guinea pigs. Don't stare, just shake their hands.
I'm extraordinarily proud of his legacy. I think it is quite utterly remarkable that we are now 56 years on from his death, that we can generate the sort of interest in, for instance, what's happening here today.
One of the guinea pigs said to the Duke the worst disability is deafness.
Deafness. Come join the club.
Join the club, replied the Duke. There was a bit of bother with the unveiling, but far worse things happen at sea and in the air. The guinea pigs have got their memorial. But Mackindo's real legacy lives on every day in every hospital around the world. Simon Viger, 5 News.
That's all from us for now. Claire Lazier has the weather next, and Danny is here with updates throughout the evening on Channel 5. For now, thanks for your company. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.